Hey, hello Gravitrons, I'm More Gravity. Let's play chess. This game I just finished, I won this game. Uh, Low accuracy from both sides, quite low. Let's take a look at why that was or how it could have been improved if it was really all that bad in the first place. So we'll start the review. I played d4, after d5, c4, e6, and then some normal Queen's Gambit decline moves. This is all part of book so far after 4 moves. I played bishop f4, just cutting into black's queen side with the possibility of knight to b5, making things interesting. 2 minor pieces ganging up on the c7 pawn. There's the possibility of this fork and all that. A little bit optimistic, but it's a specific threat to which my opponent must direct attention. Uh, Bishop d6 is definitely the way to deal with it. Block my bishop's scope and offer a equal value trade. So I capture on d6, not because I want to fall into my opponent's plans, but because I thought, black's king is a little bit opened up for checks on the a4 to e8 diagonal. Uh, in addition, these pawns are doubled. I'm not sure that that's a weakness when there's this big clump of uh, occupancy as a form of dominance right here in the center. It could be a weakness, especially say, for instance, the e pawn is traded off in some manner. But for right now, I don't consider it such. Beyond the fact that then this diagonal, like I said, from a4 to e8 is more open than otherwise. I placed my bishop on, placed my king on my rook and my pawns and my queen and my knights. Last time I played a tournament game, I set up my own pieces. Here we have a move where the knight goes to b5, and it's given a question mark as a mistake here by the uh, evaluating engine. Maybe. I mean, this adding an attacker to d6 doesn't seem all that easy right here. We try to push c5, but black's got enough other pawns in the area, and since the pawn is protected, black doesn't really have to scramble to protect that pawn either. D takes c4, and then the great move, queen to a5, threatening a discovered check against black's king that could be devastating. And I think for black here, let's go to the analysis. Black might best want to castle kingside, out of the way of that, even if it might not be the most ideal move in one way or the other, but to castle out of this otherwise devastating check would be black's best move. My opponent played bishop c7 to block the eventual check, but also blocks black's guardianship and protectorship of d6. And perhaps my opponent thought, well, the knight that would take advantage of that is pinned, and once more again, knight takes d6 is putting black in check, so that takes priority even against a pin against white's own queen. Doesn't mean that knight takes d5. Knight takes d6 check is definitely the best move, but it's to be highly considered. Okay, and that's what I played. It does happen to be the best move in this particular game, but I mean in general, you don't normally these other circumstances don't normally dictate that. Knight takes d6 check, picking up the pawn but with check. Right now my queen's under attack, and depending on where black moves, I'm going to have to find a move that solves that without losing her. I played queen takes c4, more or less. If black wants to capture on d6, white's got a hell of trouble coming your way, black, because queen to b4 check eliminates the most obvious escape from that route. All right, the king captures, then queen b4 check. These can't get there. same diagonal, no piece to block, and so on. So that leaves the king with d5 and maybe c6 and c7. c6 and c7. If my opponent's king goes there, I'm almost at the point where I don't really care to calculate, because bringing rook to c1 check has got to be good for white. Even enough so that losing the knight losing the knight to a pawn on d6 is still worth it. So king d6, queen b4 check. I like this because of the sustained pressure white puts against black. The evaluation bar doesn't like it. However, note though that even within that, black has to play accurately. King c7 or king c6 are in his favor, and the other move, king d5, is a disaster. So it goes to king c7, and that's strong. And white will continue to apply pressure with knight e5. It's one of the rare instances where I would advocate seeing beyond the computer in this position. The computer likes black to the tune of 2.5 pawns. I don't, maybe in a tournament game, but even in 10 minutes per side per game and a 5-second increment per move, white's got a really strong attack coming here, folks. Rook c1, got queens involved, the knight's threatening a fork that would win back the lost material. E3, then bishop to b5 is a little slow, but even that's not out of the question. And there's a pawn on d4 that might help. Who knows? I think white has a considerable attack here. Rook to f8 is holding on to the pawn at f7 while also preventing the fork that would win white back the exchange. So I proceed as planned. Rook c1. Blocking with the knight here is tricky. Okay, so there's queen a4 and queen c4 kind of keep white in it, and other moves are bad, really. Queen c3 to the tune of more than a pawn, e3, almost 2 pawns. So white has to be careful how to approach the situation. Did I find queen a4? I did not, but queen to b5 still shows that white has 3 pieces ganged up on a pinned knight. How is black going to deal with that? It turns out the only good move, queen e8, x-raying the second protectorship of c6, was difficult to find. I wouldn't have. That doesn't jump out at you. I might have found it a lot of time, but not as one of my first investigations. The X-ray defense, and that the queen is definitely free against the knight, and the knight that the white doesn't have enough against that knight anyway, kind of thing. So anyway, my opponent not fell for it. My opponent played b7, which is would be like one of the strong moves other than queen to e8. Played king b7, which is one of the strong moves other than played king to b7, which is one of the strong moves other than queen to e8. The problem is too few defenders on c6. They're just simple and direct overpowering. You might check out some of the sidelines of this to make sure you're not that your queen moves last and all that. So I played knight takes c6 after queen e8, knight a5 check was a big deal. All this hinges, all of my side of this. After king b7, knight takes c6, and then the mistake for queen e8, just a tad too late. Knight a5 check. Demonstrates the win for white. And the king back. And then checkmate with queen to e5 mate. Strange game, really. Alright, let's play another game at that same time control. Okay. Okay. Right. I think I want to review the most recent game. I believe we reviewed. Yeah, we reviewed this game already. So the early troubles with Black's king placement and so on, then to attack and then a checkmate here. A nice, accurate game. Uh, we know that Black's last move was a blunder. Other than that, this game was pretty strong, I thought. Let's go over. I had the white pieces. D4, D6, C4, Knight F6, Knight C3, G6, E4, Bishop G7, and my opponent is playing for a quick castle on the king side. Bishop E2 and C6, the King's Indian defense. Black has established the King's Indian defense. Often against the King's Indian defense, the Kid, as it's sometimes known, White will be very aggressive in occupying and controlling the center, and that's because once Black's king castles, this bishop at G7 is attacking from the side. We see this in real warfare too. For instance, in the American Revolution, here in the United States, patriots would attack British convoys both in a surprise manner and from the sides, literally as they are walking probably four abreast down a road or something. Then all of a sudden, the patriots attack, arise, get the first shot off it, and then away. The British might not get many casualties in return. So that's a classic thing. Your opponent occupies the center, you attack from the sides. It's all over warfare. It's all over combat as well. It is all over chess very strongly as well. King's Indian defense is one of the excellent ways for Black to play. H4, getting this pawn storm going, and we'll see. I mean, if you were watching while I finished the game, you'll see that this H pawn turns out to be a hero, or a heroine, perhaps a heroine. Most pawns that promote are queens, so a heroine. The H4 pawn becomes a total heroine, saves the day. And here I played the blunder. Pawn to H5. 1, 2, 3 defenders against 1, 2, 3 attackers. But Black is left with the move and a shot at D4. So White has blundered to the tune of about a full pawn, I'd say, maybe a little bit more, about a pawn and a half. And then Knight takes E4 is another way for Black to exploit that the faulty move of H5. In fact, it's a more active way to exploit the fault of H5, because Black still gathers a pawn and is removing fewer pieces from the board. Black says, I like what I've got going here. I think I can make real good of it, and yeah, the tactics work out for Black. Now I'm wondering though. Here's black to move. Oh, yeah. The tactics are exactly right. Yeah. Knight takes d2 is the exact move. Puts my queen on d2, and there's even thoughts of, some kind of skewer. Probably not likely to happen. It's one of the things to keep in the back of your mind if you're my opponent in this position. Is the b pawn and the queen are protecting c3, but whenever a king and a queen line up on a diagonal like this, you just want to take just a moment to say, is it there? Is it there? You don't have to look very far or too deep. But is it there? So that I don't miss it altogether. And my opponent, it wasn't there, by the way. The skewer didn't turn out to be there, but it's on its way to being there. Oh, the Grand Ragers. Kingside castles. H6. Pushing the bishop back. By the way, kingside castles is exactly the right move. H6 is coming. And if I get h6 in, it's really bad for black. If the bishop has to drop back to f8, maybe there's something to be said for f6 barely holding things together. Yep, no, that's probably there. But I like the kingside castle at this point in time. When h6 comes, and here it is, the black bishop will drop back to h8 and continue to enjoy a lot of influence on the long diagonal. Rook h5. I was taking advantage of a tactic that wasn't there. The idea was g takes h5 and queen to g5, check. Bishop to g7, and then queen takes g7 checkmate. Only one thing wrong with all that. There's a queen on the 5th rank. Could capture this rook outright, or even after capturing with the pawn, when my queen comes in to give a check on g5, then black's queen swoops in to capture my queen, and I'll have lost. I want to say though, this happens. Look, the action is all here and all on the king side, right? This queen is sort of in a position where she's not normally finding herself, and she's way over here on the queen side. So visually, this is a type of, occasionally a player makes an error of calculation because of vision. Because where is the queen and the rook in terms of vision? And there's a lot going on over here, and they're on other sides of the board. So just to tell you, yeah. Queen b6 actually kind of goes against some of that. I'm not sure. We move on. Knight to b4 is mostly the problem because, look, knight to b4, to defend the pawn here, I played knight to a4 rather. To defend the pawn here, I played knight to a4. White has other things to worry about. The rook on g6, okay, we get it. There's some sort of pin, because if g takes h6, then queen to g5 check, and then checkmate thereafter. We get it. There's some sort of weird pin on this pawn, but it doesn't have to cost you your rook, Jordan of 20 minutes ago. It doesn't have to cost you your rook. Yeah, so this, I would say that knight a4, I'll come back to this position and wonder why I played knight to a4. Better move would be rook to h4. Subtle, easy, no problem. Helping to cover the central pawn that's being attacked twice. This rook is not in danger. The issue with the g pawn's still there if and when that happens to occur. Yeah, I would say white should play rook to h4 here. And let's actually bring in the analysis to help us out with that. Rook to h4 is one of the top moves, so fine. I'm glad that I found it in analysis at least. Instead I played knight to a4 and it just drops a full pawn. I mean, I'm not gonna trade queens on the d file, but things are looking a little bit difficult here for white. Threaten a pawn, okay, but black has such control over the long diagonal that the checkmate on g7 is not as potent a threat as it once was. Rook d1, queen e4, knight c3. Queen e6, and now white is starting to just slightly a bit here, slightly making ground after some of these moves. And now here, white has lowered the lead to even less than the value of black's material lead. So just 1.9 instead of 2 there. Get this on pilot. Okay. Now queen c3 and the blunder, right? This very tempting rook on h5. I would say part of this is that pawn has been pinned for a long time. He picked up the bishop, but he forgot about the pin, so now I can pick up the rook that's been hanging. And he picks up the rook, but the checkmate on g7 is still there. So that last minute blunder. Great game. We a strange ending, but this sometimes these are how endings go, especially if you want to look at possibilities. Sometimes if you're down a lot of material, don't look to necessarily trade material or grab a single pawn. You're down a lot of material. You're looking to pick up rooks. You're looking to pick up series of pawns and minor pieces. You're looking to pick up a queen, or you're looking for checkmate. And sometimes that's the defender's tool. I believe they call it the underdog's tool. So I guess there was a little bit of that in this game for me. Queen to g7. I was opportunistic when the chance arose. I took it, and both my opponent and I played a reasonably accurate game. Really grateful to have played Rock Gus Z, and so thank you for the game. And that's gonna be it for this broadcast. I'll probably broadcast again around 8 p.m. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Have a great night.